You know, I wasn't going to do another video on housing, but it seems like a lot of people like this topic, so I was like, I might as well share with you some of my research. Now, you might think this is right, this is wrong, you're wrong, or whatnot, and it's really up to you. I'm just sharing with you my research, and if you don't like it, that's cool. But let me go on in here. This is the housing bubble in Toronto in 1989, and back then, people were like, housing would never fall. And I just wanted to show you this chart here. This is the average house price in 1989. And I think my parents bought it at around here, around 300,000. Obviously, there was probably other things they had to pay. And this is unadjusted for inflation. So this is like regular money, right? And if we adjust it to 2012's inflation adjusted dollars, you'll notice that housing is pretty much the same as 2012 around here in 2011. And if we have more data to 2016, it's probably up here. So it went beyond 1989. And this, if we take a look at this, this is the same. This is probably like the housing number of the U.S. to 2008, right? Somewhere around here, yeah. So, you know, this is when my parents bought their first home, and housing started going down, right? Like right here. Back then, you know, $5 was a lot of money, guys. So, as housing started going down, and it took a really long while before housing actually went back up. It took like what, 13 years? It took a while. Let's just say that. It took, I don't know how long, but you could do the estimate yourself. But it took a while. And let me just talk a bit about before 1980. You see, you're probably wondering, hey, why did this thing go up like this? And why did the house not go back down here, right? It stayed like around this, it's hovering around this area. The reason why, you know, 1970, right, was when the women started fighting for women's right to work in the workplace and stuff like that. So in the 1970s, and then we get to like around. You see, this is where the bubble really started, right, and stuff like that. You see, women were probably like, I don't know, if it was like 1970s, women were probably like, I don't know, let's just say women that were like 5 years old. You know, like 10 years later they started working, and this is when they really started working, and then housing started going up. There we go, and it fueled the bubble. And when it crashed and went back down, right, it didn't go down to this area because the women that started fighting for women's right and stuff like that, it was like, you know, women that were 5, or I guess girls that were 5, here they're like, I don't know, they started working and they're like 20 something. So housing never went back down here because women started to bring in a stream of income. And unlike before that, only men were working, right? So, you know, it never went back down there because of women. Women started working. And then it started, you know, here we go, it started going up. And if we look at it, we're up. And in any chart, you'll know throughout history, there's always up, there's always a down. There's never something that goes up in perpetuity. If you think something that goes up in perpetuity, you're completely insane. And here is what this thing is saying. This was written in 1988. Hot houses. Forget all the conspiracy theories about what's behind the crazy Toronto real estate market. Here are the real reasons why houses are soaring and why they'll stay high. This is 1988, you know, and you know, as you can see here, 1988, which is right here again, it was still going up. Same thing here. Of course, it was still going up. And yeah, sure, it went up. It went up to the highest point a year later, and then it started going down. I mean, if you're thinking this is why they'll stay high means 1 year, then obviously you're right. But this guy must have felt like an idiot afterwards when the housing prices started going down. And if we read this article in 1988, you'll notice absolutely everybody from cab drivers to chief executive has a story about the crazy Toronto housing market, yada yada. A plumber sold a land and became a millionaire in Greece. And you know, there's a lot of these stories here. Politician, look at this affordability crisis, and you know, there's a lot that you can read this online. I'm not gonna go over everything, but basically, in a nutshell, everybody was saying that housing is gonna never fall. It's always gonna go up. There's always you know, somebody coming out saying that housing's been going up. It'll never fall. And if we look back at this chart, bam, 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 and these houses here around this area, you're probably thinking, hey, you could hold the house and it'll be good, right? Or it's the same thing today. You hold the condo, it'll be good, right? You see, when they bought these houses, because I lived in one of these houses are small. They are shoebox bungalow kind of thing that is completely, utterly trash. You cannot live in one of those things. And my parents brought. I was raised in one of these houses, and sure, they could probably sell the house for the same amount. But who would want to, seriously, the house, living in there for so many years? That was a completely crazy time. I mean, if you in 2008, right here, right? If we look at it for $400,000, I could have bought a two-story house that had 5, 6 rooms. So with the condos today, the shoebox condo, I think it's a shoebox condo now. In 1988, 1989, it was a shoebox house, and I think that with time, the condos are gonna get better somehow, as it might be bigger or whatnot. And let me just go on into this chart here, and this is the number of baby boomers there is, right? About 9 million ish, and there's about a bit less, maybe 400,000 less children from, I guess, the millennials. And the baby boomers are dying, guys. Look at this. I mean, my parents are gonna die in the next 10 years, unfortunately. I mean, I feel bad, but what can I say? Humans, they live and die. All right, so the debt to disposable income, there's plenty of articles. Canadian today are $200 away from being overwhelmed with debt. And obviously, none of these things look good. Look at this. Back then, back in the 1980s, interest rate was at 14, 12%. Even if I say 10%, I was being conservative already, right? We're at zero now. Zero. Completely zero. There's going to be negative interest rate. This doesn't look good in all fronts. And, like I was saying, everybody knows and thinks back then housing would never fall, and it did go down. And it goes back to the mentality of people, right? I have a friend, and he's a great barometer for everything, because he's a greedy type of person. And if you follow Warren Buffett, he has a saying where when people are greedy, you should be fearful, and when people are fearful, you should be greedy. Somewhere around there. And I have a friend that has whatever he ever bought in his entire life, it has always gone down. Because you see, the type of mentality for these people is that, as long as it's going up, like right here, they see the money, right? And then just when it's about to boom go down, they're buying into it. And I have this friend that bought oil stocks, right here. And the first thing I said when he was telling me to buy oil stocks, I was like, dude, oil is so high. Why would I want to buy oil, man? Oil's like crazy. It's so expensive. Why would I want to buy oil? He's like, dude, you don't know oil, man. Oil's been going up for 20 years. It never goes down. And then he bought it, and I think a couple months later, or maybe half a year later, or a year later, I go bam. And he's like, don't worry, it'll go back up. And it go bam. And I'm like, yeah, And then, at this time, I'm like, I think it's a good time to buy oil. He's like, dude, why would you want to buy oil, man? Oil is like, it went down. I'm like, yeah, I think that's why I want to buy oil, because it went down. So, this throughout history, things always go up, it always goes down. There's no such thing as going up in perpetuity. And I think we're at the tipping point. We're pretty much up here. And sure, will it go down next year? It might go down here, it might not. I mean, it might go here, and then, but the path for it obviously is not good. And as it goes down, the shoebox condo, the shoebox house, will be replaced with better houses, better condos, as the price goes down, right? Obviously, I've seen much better houses back in 2007 compared to the houses in 1989 that was built then. and the insulation better, everything else is better. It's just better, and it makes sense for me to just say, hey, I'm just, I might as well just not be in the market of housing. I might want to go somewhere else. You're probably like, what about inflation? Well, why don't you invest in something else? I mean, why do you want to invest in something you know that we're at high, and that at any time in the next 20 years or maybe 12 years, it's going to go bam? And there's one thing I want to discuss, and it's the baby boomers. They are dying. Like I was saying, I mean, I feel bad, but they are dying, guys. Look at this. World War II, and if you add these things up, the World War II as well as the baby boomers, they're dying. They are dying. What do you think they're going to do with their houses when they're heading into retirement and they're dying? If I am retiring, this is the common human thing. If I am retiring, and I know I'm going to die, and I'm not going to have that much life, like, to live, I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to, like, travel the world, or I might downsize or do something else. And if we look at the job report, I don't want to bring this up, but, the job report, Canada job report, I made a video on this. The job report, look at this. The top 4 growing employment sectors in Canada. And this is all, like, misleading. Let's go back here. Employment rose 67,000. All right, I want to go over this really quickly. Demographics, they're all part-time jobs, one thing. The second thing is all this employment, over 38,000, is by women over 55 and over. Dude, they have no money. They will probably downsize their house. And we have men. 18,000 were men age 55 and over. They are dying. They are getting older. They're going back to work. They have to go back to work. And what do you think that would do for housing? If they don't have enough money as they enter like 70 years old, they will start selling their house for money. And, oh, right. One thing I want to also mention. Combined with a looming recession. I think we're already in recession. So, I think it's a terrible time. If you think it's a good time, you could go into it, but all of his thing looks like it's a bad time to me. Recession happened every 4 to 6 years, and they report it like years later, right? So I'm gonna say 10 years, because this thing spreads out now. As time went on, right? This thing it's becoming 10 years, 8 years. So we're already in for another recession. This isn't rocket science. This isn't rocket science. Everybody is so confident about housing, confident about everything, and that's when it goes like, bam, with a recession here, looming recession. If you believe in history, I think you should wait for the next few years, and maybe something will happen. Maybe housing prices will go down. I mean, will it? Is there a potential to go up? Sure, but if you add up everything, like generations dying in the next decade, you start adding the debt to GDP, the ratio, and stuff like that. What is that? No, I wasn't looking at that. The disposable income, I showed you guys. It was like, people are $200 away to being bankrupt. If you add all of these things in perspective, I don't want to join the game at this time. Look at this. Negative, not even negative, 0 interest rate, 0.5 interest rate, 0. Whatever. And, I think it's a terrible idea. I mean, why would I want to invest in something that is up here? It makes no sense. And like I said, Warren Buffett has a great saying. Let's look this up. It's Warren Buffett. I think it's a fearful when others are greedy. All right, so here it is. See, you be fearful when others are greedy. And right now in real estate, everybody is greedy. You got the average 18-year-old. You got the cab driver. You got like people that are like saying, dude, housing would never fall. And I have so many friends that just bought a house, and I'm like, or bought a condo, and they're renting it out, and they're doing all this stuff. And you're like sitting there, dude, okay, if you're doing it, I don't want to be doing it. So anyways, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. And right now, I think housing, everybody's greedy. Everybody thinks this is like a free ride kind of thing, and that it's just going to go up in perpetuity. And for me, I think that's a bad time. I mean, you could have your opinion about it. Like I was saying, there's a looming recession. I might as well just wait until a recession happens to see what happens, than to actually be talking positively about housing. Anyways, hopefully you learned something from this, and hopefully this has helped you put some perspective into the market and whatnot. And if it has, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.